A friend has asked some new questions which seem worth addressing, because a question asked by one is often a question held by many. And that is, what is enlightenment? What constitutes an enlightened being? And I first thought of the teachings of Dr. David Hawkins, who has created a scale of consciousness from 1 to 1,000. It's a very Western scientific approach to spiritual growth and levels of consciousness. The level of 200 is the difference between truth and falsehood, for example. And on his scale, 600 is the level of the first stages of enlightenment. In other words, if a person calibrates, or anything, idea, scripture, anything calibrates 600 or higher, then he considers it to be enlightened. But I don't want to go into those technical definitions in this video, because I think it's important for us to think about what is the big deal about labels like enlightenment. How are they helpful? What impact do they have on our lives and on our relationships? And so really that's what all labels are about. We could label a plant poison ivy, for example, and know how to identify it. We're going to act quite differently around that as compared to your run-of-the-mill ivy that is not poisonous, or a flower that we'll actually come right up to and stick our nose into. So at that practical level, all concepts, all labels have a purpose unless they're strictly academic. And if there's one thing that I want to avoid in these videos, it's information just for the sake of entertaining the intellectual mind. There's more than enough sources for that. These videos are designed to inspire practice. And so if the concept of enlightenment, as you understand what enlightenment means to you, is inspirational for you to seek it, or to at least practice your spiritual practices, then that's a very useful concept and perhaps label for you personally. And then the other aspect is, if you were to try to discern whether a person that you have the potential to associate with or listen to videos made by is or is not enlightened, perhaps that would affect your desire to associate with that person or teacher. So I suppose that's another useful aspect. Well, this teacher does not consider himself to be enlightened, and there's many levels of understanding that feed into that. One is the level of the Dr. David Hawkins. He describes different stages of spiritual development and consciousness very clearly. And I've recognized some of those stages in this life, in this person, David, but not so much the full enlightenment as he describes it, whereby a person has realized a paradigm that is nonlinear. I don't know exactly what he even means by that yet. However, when discerning whether someone's teachings might be useful to you or not, please stay away from labels that other people have made, because they're really not that important or helpful. What is helpful is what teachings resonate with you right now? And if they resonate, they could be something that a 6-year-old girl has told you. And she may or may not be fully, maturely, spiritually enlightened. It doesn't matter. What matters is that she's giving you a little wake-up call. She's giving you a new angle on something that clicks and a little light bulb goes over your head. It's like, oh, wow, that is a cool little girl. I am going to remember what she said because it resonates with me and it feels very helpful. I'm ready to take action in my life based on the realization of what that little girl said. And of course, nothing that anyone says is new. The Buddha has said things. Jesus Christ has said things. Dr. David Hawkins, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, one of my favorite teachers, they've all said wonderful, helpful things. We're just not always ready to hear them so that they are realizable. Now, the difference between intellectual understanding and a realization of something is very important. And for me, as I reread teachings or rewatch videos, I can notice as I go along which aspects of the teachings I've realized in my own insights, understandings, and most importantly, actions in my life, and which ones are still just over the head still, because I haven't reached the point where I can understand them and take them to my heart and into my life. I may have some concept of intellectual, conceptual understanding, but that's not the same as realization. So getting back to enlightenment, what all of the enlightened masters and monastics and mystics have talked about is unity. It is the all is one reality that they have come to realize. And we can understand this to some degree through the intellect, but not so well, because the intellect is all about comparing and separating. All the conceptual words, labels like enlightenment, all these things separate and enable us to discern one thing from another. Unity is the exact opposite of intellectual process. It's surrendering to all being not the same in its manifestation, but all being essentially the same, all being sourced from the same, and so intertwined and interrelated that the discussion of separation is a superficial discussion. It's not fundamentally true. It's very judgmentally or superficially, personally true, but not fundamentally true. And so it's very difficult to talk about enlightenment, and especially when you talk about a person being enlightened, because a person is a human being separate from the others. That's not actually true. And so therefore, a person cannot be enlightened per se, unless all people are enlightened. And so that's really a better way to look at the process of enlightenment, is one of realization of what you already are. So I hope this sheds some light on my understandings of the term enlightenment and where I feel I am. in relationship to that. And I hope that this is useful to you, inspires practice. And if so, please give me a thumbs up down below and share my YouTube channel with your friends.